please welcome the panelist for Involuntarily Unbanked.
Awesome. Hi, hello, welcome. Welcome to Involuntarily Unbanked, how the cannabis industry makes the case for crypto. My name is Stephanie Izquieta. I'm the head of Web3 content for event programming. And yes, we thought about putting this session at 4:20, but the schedule didn't allow it. Before we jump into it, I kind of just want to level set with you all so we can get on the same page. Many in the audience are familiar with the meme, "What the fuck happened in 1971?" Given that we're at consensus, for most people, the answer to that is that the Nixon administration in 1971 took us off the gold standard and therefore introduced the monetary policies and fiat currency we have today. But something else also happened in 1971. 1971 was also the year that the Nixon administration declared that America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse, and thus the war on drugs began. Now, I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but I also don't believe in coincidences. If we zoom out for a bit and connect the dots, what really happened in 1971 under the Nixon administration was the gross expansion of state power into the realms of American life that never existed before. And today, 50 years later, what we have to show for the expansion of state power is a failed drug war and a central bank that can't stop printing money. So it begs the question, given the history, are our two industries more intertwined than we tend to believe? With me today are two friends of mine who I will allow them to introduce themselves. Take it away, Khurshid.
Hi, everyone. I'm Khurshid Khoja. I am an attorney. I've been practicing in the cannabinoid and psychedelics industries for the last 11 years. And I am on the executive board of the National Cannabis Industry Association, which is the oldest and largest federal trade association of state legal cannabis businesses in the country.
Hello. In this capacity, I'm co-founder of Cannabis, which is a cannabis advocacy and marketing collective that's been around since 2017, made of mostly black and brown folks. I'm also on the board for Social Equity Ventures, which is a venture fund operating by the parent co. I'm on the board for Ease Momentum as well, which is a cooperative effort that's focused on providing funding and resources to those who are starting small businesses in the space. I advise several plant-touching and non-plant touching companies in regards to how to raise money and sustain. And I'm also part owner of a cannabis farm grow called Trickle Gardens and part owner of a CBD company called Tonic Vibes.
She does it all.
Slacker.
Okay, so first question for both of you. How does the federal government uses the banking system to hinder the growth of state legal cannabis businesses and police the industry?
So, as you know, even though we have a vibrant industry of state legal cannabis businesses, cannabis is still federally illegal, right? Under the Controlled Substances Act, it's still Schedule 1. So everything that these state legal companies are doing actually violates federal law. So there's a conflict between state and federal law. As a result, all of the cannabis commerce that these state legal cannabis companies engage in essentially, triggers the application of RICO and money laundering laws, right? It's specified unlawful activity under the law, and so you can't deposit the proceeds of specified unlawful activity into a federally regulated bank. You can't access the digital payment rails as well. You can't get bank loans, so you're basically cut off from that. And then if you do have any access to banking under Obama administration guidelines that were issued by the Department of Treasury that are still technically in effect, the reporting requirements for that are just massive, right? Every deposit potentially triggers a suspicious activity report. So the cost of banking for those who can access it is extremely high, right? When's the last time somebody paid $5,000 a month for a checking account in the crowd, right? That happens routinely in the cannabis industry.
And this also connects to e-com, right? Like you cannot use anything that's connected by Stripe because Stripe forbids that you're not able to do cannabis or mostly any of those types of sales on any platforms. PayPal doesn't allow it. Shopify doesn't allow it because Stripe doesn't allow it. There's a lot of Square doesn't allow it, right? So there's a lot of these commerce systems that businesses cannot use. For the hemp and CBD industry, that's even a problem there. Even though there's a federal regulation that says it's no longer illegal, even there's still that hurdle of an item because people are just very, very afraid given all of the things that Khurshid has said before. And what this turns into in the retail industry is that you have people that will store live cash in safes or live cash in their drawers, and back-to-back robberies are coming up way more and more often, especially in California. You can look about the back-to-back robberies happening in Oakland over the past few years. Same thing for California. I have a lot of friends and colleagues that have just opened up shops and got robbed like a week, 2 weeks later, or they're getting robbed every 6 months or every year. So that live cash storage, lack of infrastructure, the FDIC not really protecting those funds, there's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah, and people are dying. People are actually dying in these armed robberies, right? These are kids that are working as bud tenders that are, all they're doing is going to work, and they're getting shot. They're getting killed, and this is happening in California. It's happening in Washington. It's happening in Oregon. It's happening, every state that has a legal cannabis industry with unbanked cannabis businesses is getting affected by this. Thank you.
You both just provided a laundry list of the issues happening because of basically not having access to a bank. What has the federal government, if anything, done to address the public safety risks that you just mentioned, and denying the cannabis, because they deny the cannabis industry access to banking?
So, under the Obama administration, there were some moves by the federal government to create a safe harbor, at least in terms of executive branch policy. It didn't have the force of law, but it did basically give banks some parameters on how to bank proceeds from a lawful cannabis business, right? And essentially, they were expecting the banks to act as law enforcement and regulators when that's not really their job, right? And so, but those are the conditions under which they were allowed to take these deposits. After that, Congress introduced the Safe Banking Act, or members of Congress introduced the Safe Banking Act, which essentially would codify the safe harbor that was in the Department of Treasury guidelines, right? But unfortunately, the Safe Banking Act has not passed. It was introduced many, many years ago. It's passed the House 6 times, and it keeps dying in the Senate because the Senate will not take action on it. And so, we're in limbo in terms of the Safe Banking Act, which is why, thinking about crypto and how that might help alleviate some of the issues involved with running a business in all cash is an opportunity for us to think about alternatives to the banking system.
So guys, call your senators. Mary, so let's pivot a little bit. We know that we don't have access to banking, and that's something that's also difficult for us to access in cannabis space is money. How challenging is it to access money for a startup, for operating capital, as a cannabis business? What are some of the more unique hurdles in the space?
So right now, delayed federal legalization is affecting funding for everybody, whether it's a small business owner, an entrepreneur, a large multi-million, billion-dollar company. These stalls with federal legalization means that people are not able to act on these forecasts that they said they're going to have for widespread work or widespread product proliferation in different states, right? So that, on top of being either a marginalized citizen of the world, whether you're a woman or a person of color, that on top of just being in an industry that you have a lot of stigmatization, a lot of people that see it as very, very risky in certain levels of it, it's very, very hard to amass capital. We're talking about a business where on the cultivation side, for something that's going to be an acre, 2 acres, you need about $1 million if you're going to go into cultivation. For manufacturing, about $10 million to start. For retail, I know people that are making it work on $500,000, but to be able to withstand all the things that come with different compliance laws you might not be aware of that pop up, you need to be walking into something with at least $1.5 million to be able to make sure that you're able to operate. That doesn't include insurance, that doesn't include bond, that doesn't include your security plan, that doesn't include leasing and operating and owning a building. And so there's a lot of these things that rack up from just a simple amount of money that would have been possible maybe in 2014 to now upon millions of dollars to start in a plant touching business. So it's a big challenge in general.
Okay.
And those barriers to entry also, disproportionately affect folks who are in the legacy market or the illicit market who want to transition into the regulated market. They want to pay their taxes. They want to, they want to run everything above board, but the financial hurdles are significant. The regulatory hurdles are significant. And so it's very difficult for folks to, for this experiment where, the advocates for legalization, that's one of the arguments, right, is that we're going to see a transition from the illicit market to the regulated market, and that's not really happening. On top of that, the banking issues that we have make it really difficult for investors to kind of grasp the opportunity as well, right? Even if they're not necessarily deterred by the fact that it's federally illegal, the fact that they may not be able to, to deposit their distribution checks into a bank account is a significant cause of concern. If you're going to invest and not be able to actually cash your distributions check from the profits, then what's the point, right?
And it's way more easier when you think about it to set up a really, really well drawn out or agreed upon smart contract to utilize it as launching a digital asset like an NFT that can be used as utility to get product and in a retail nature in IRL experience. Or if you were just thinking about the idea of just the fact that receiving Ethereum or receiving Tezos or receiving Bitcoin to be able to turn that into something that you can use and buy property with and do exchanges with. There are a lot of companies and a lot of countries that are trying to find ways to make this a part of their currency of tender because of the untapped opportunities that are not happening in the investment forum when it comes to crypto.
Is there any company or project that you've seen that's been able to do that collaboration between crypto and cannabis, whether it's using NFTs or?
I know that there's one, the parent co has a project that they have invested in with DigiStrains, which is a really, really unique NFT project. You can look it up. The first drop already occurred and sold out. And there's other versions of it, or from the secondary market on OpenSea. But that's something that unlocks into doing an IRL retail purchase with said product that's going to have more utility down the line. There's Cannisars, there's Flowers, there's Crypto Cannabis Club, where a lot of different companies have come together within that Discord community to offer different NFTs to get products as well. There's even the idea of people creating different DAOs to formalize funds in a way. I know Reparations DAO is something that Khurshid is working on, and he can talk more about that. I think that the potential of this is all untapped. I really truly think NFTs are the crumbs that unlock to deeper infrastructural development that can be done from anybody who wants to take real reign into this. I think that the real developing world needs to know that crypto being unbanked is really attractive to someone that's thinking about ways to get into this industry, because there seems to be a lot more capital that's built upon, you think about Silk Road, this whole experience of buying and purchasing drugs anyway. If you think about what you used your Tor browser for back for in 2012, 2013, 2014.
Many regrets.
I used a Tor browser for that, but that's not what we're here to talk about, so.
I hear you. Mary brought up your reparations out, so I want to give you some chance to talk about that.
Yeah, so the idea kind of grew out of frustration with existing social equity measures in the cannabis industry. So for those of you who are not familiar with the history of the drug war, it was, as Stephanie mentioned, it was initiated by Nixon, and it was after the fact, we've learned from folks in the Nixon administration that the intent was pretty openly racist, right? The intention was to use the drug war to prosecute black communities, to go after political dissidents, hippies, to go after other marginalized communities, but primarily people of color. And that intention was stated quite plainly, and so that is now in the record, right? And so now we know that the drug war and cannabis prohibition was founded on this notion of, hey, we're going to just violate the equal protection rights of all these communities. We're going to have a pretense for arresting them. We're going to have a pretense for disrupting their communities, and so that was the plan, right? And so a reaction to this, when we started to see states legalizing cannabis commerce, was to say, well, what are we going to do about the folks that were already locked up? Well, obviously we're going to release them. We're going to expunge records, but but what else are we going to do, right? And especially when folks are seeing CEOs, flying in private jets, making a lot of money in the cannabis industry, doing something that they got imprisoned for, that they were separated from their families for, and it's immoral. It's not right. And so, one of the reactions was to try to encourage licensing opportunities in marginalized communities, especially in Black and Brown communities, which is definitely a goal that I share. I want to see that as well. But it doesn't really provide recompense to the folks that were rotting in cages, right? There were, somewhere between 30 and 40 million people, 30 and 40 million Americans who were arrested, prosecuted, locked up for cannabis, right? We don't have that many licenses to give out. And further to that, some of these folks don't necessarily want to start a business. And why should they have to start a business to get reparations? They shouldn't have to do that. They served time. We need to pay them. And so one of the ideas that I've proposed to advocates in the cannabis industry and regulators is to say, hey, let's supplement this preferred licensing approach with real reparations, right? And I think that you can incentivize the cannabis industry with tax credits to essentially contribute their stock to a pool that would be held by formerly incarcerated nonviolent cannabis prisoners, right? It's held in a common pool just for them. The companies could get a tax break on their cannabis taxes. This could be implemented at the local, state, or federal level. I think it makes most sense at the federal level once we get to federal legalization, but it's modular, right? So in any case, if we have that pool of equity, cannabis equity reserved for them, we can set that up in a DAO, right? We can set that up to be held in a DAO and to have, we know who's been locked up, so we can even potentially assign them wallets, airdrop those tokens to them that represent their share in that common pool of the industry, right? And that gives them the power to form a very, very powerful shareholder block that could really affect the future of the cannabis industry in the U.S. It also gives them the ability gives them agency, right? Gives them the ability to manage those assets without anyone trying to exploit them, without anyone trying to influence them. And they're learning the industry. They're learning how to be shareholders in the industry and how to manage the industry in the process as well. So it's an idea that I've been proposing. Obviously, there's a lot of work that needs to be done between now and then, but that's the basic idea.
It's a fabulous idea. Don't forget to send me the Discord link.
Same.
Mary, you and I have both been in these industries for a while now, before it got cool, both in cannabis and crypto. So we've seen a lot of the rug pulls. What's, for folks in the cannabis space who already face so many obstacles, what are some of the real, hesitancies from that side of the aisle to even come into our space? I mean, look what happened with Terra a few weeks ago. If someone had been in cannabis and experimenting with that could have been in their entire business,
Bitcoin's still sitting at about 30,000, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot more than what I got when I jumped in. I jumped in 2014 with $100 on my PayPal card. It was like 4 a.m. We're up. I mean, even when I brought this back up to my friends in a group chat in 2017, that was in the thousands. Bitcoin is still riding up, right? We are in a market where we're in a promoted recession that is coming, whether we like it or not. I'm not really the kind of person that likes to make predictions, but there's so many systems that we all know that we want this to not be aligned with, but are slowly trickling in, that are making vested purpose into this space as crypto, to where I feel like we are now in a it's too big to fail type of energy. And I also think that a lot of the lingo and the language around crypto, from L1 to on-coin to off-coin, it's a lot of language that you have to get past and dive deep into. And when you're in it, it's easier for you to digest. I think cannabis is such a rat race to where you have to raise money for your business, always be out to keep money for your business, find more money for your business. A new regulation can knock out your packaging. You got to do new packaging. Something can happen with the Your crop could have like an issue in terms of a parasite. You got to get new product. Like you got to stay on your toes and kind of like go through a lot of like traumatic experiences at times to like keep your business operating. This has a lot of potential to generate new ways of investment because capital is needed no matter what. You can't out-resource capital. Like you need capital to even do the resources you need to be able to build your business. I think that for anyone that's in cannabis or thinking about ways to support cannabis businesses, especially those founded by people that look like me or that are melanated, we want crypto to be a part of our portfolio. We want to be able to accept crypto. I want to be able to teach people about different types of wallets that you need for different types of coin. I want you to be able to think about a fund that we can utilize to create deeper investment, whether it's through the purchase of different NFTs or even finding the right partners to work with that are celebrities or sports stars or music stars to be able to do things that are in a whole other world. That's going to drive so much interest. I mean, we already have someone like Snoop, who is an icon, yes, a celebrity, but his fervent in the cannabis community, his work with Casa Verde, how he's building his own ecosystem as we speak. His son is involved with Snoop Geek Squad. Like, this is a thing. Someone's going to figure this out. And I feel like we're at the crumbs piece of this in a way where we've been talking about NFTs since forever. The first NFT white paper was 2017. Like, there's a lot more that we can do here. I just want people that have the means and the capital to think about cannabis investment in the form of crypto for people that really need it. And it can be successful, because there are successful businesses out there.
For sure.
And on that point about education, you know, in talking to social equity entrepreneurs in the cannabis industry and just entrepreneurs generally, there is a need for education on crypto for these business owners, right? They have a lot on their plates. And so they don't have time to dive deep into how to set up a crypto payment system that will work for them. And there's a lot of misinformation out there as well about crypto, a lot of FUD and things that you know, scare them. The volatility scares them, right? The notion that they could take a payment one day and then that payment is not worth what it was and they don't have the money to pay their cannabis taxes then and they lose their license. That's very real and it's something that we have to contend with.
So we're running short on time, unfortunately, but I guess last, or a quick takeaway, both for you, in 15 seconds each. What do you want to communicate to both the cannabis and crypto industry?
I think that the technology has immense potential, not just for payments, but for the way that we organize cannabis companies, for the way that we run cannabis companies, and for the future of the industry. So this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Let's figure this out. I work with active businesses. I'm an active business. I've been in crypto since 2014. I've ridden all types of waves. I've definitely onboarded my share of people. I make it a point to onboard as much as I can in every industry I am in. I want to work with smart people and do this with integrity, and we can all eat. So there's no reason to be stingy. Whether we're in a recession or not, we're going to come out of it. This industry is here. It's a commodity. Cannabis is being utilized in so many different ways across many different industries. We really need to take this seriously.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.